Welcome to the Grixis Inverter deck tech. Hope you're excited. I've had a lot of fun playing this deck, and there's no better feeling in Magic than going for an Inverter of Truth, exiling your library, and then flipping your graveyard as your new library. But let's go and jump into the deck tech. So we're playing Grixis Inverter. Let's start off with the actual card itself, Inverter of Truth. Whenever Inverter of Truth enters the battlefield, exile all cards from your library face down, then shuffle all cards from your graveyard into your library. Now, long story short, what are we trying to do with Inverter? We're trying to get to the point to where maybe it's going to be late game. We can maybe close the game out with a 6/6 flyer. And we really want to sculpt our library into a really high impact new library, basically. We're going to turn our graveyard into our library. One of the ways that we can do that is going to be using cards with Delve. So we're running one copy of Murderous Cut. We're also running 3 copies of Gurmag Angler. The Delve ability off these cards is really going to help us make sure that we have a really high impact graveyard to flip our turn new library. There's going to be some games where we go for an Inverter of Truth with maybe only 5 cards in the library in our graveyard, but maybe 2 of those are Lightning Bolts and then a couple Kolaghan's Command and Electrolyze or something like that. It's all completely cards that we want to draw to help us deal that damage, to help us close it out. Now, outside of the Delve stuff to help us sculpt the graveyard, one of the ways that's going to help us build the graveyard is going to be stuff like Thought Scour. Target player puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into their graveyard, then draw a card. This is going to make sure that we have some sort of some sort of cards in our graveyard. That way, if we do want to go for Inverter of Truth, we have some options in there. And also with Thought Scour, it's going to really help us kind of pump out those Gurmag Anglers a lot quicker than normal, putting some pressure on our opponent. Now, outside of the graveyard / library shenanigans, we are running 3 copies of Young Pyromancer. Young Pyromancer is kind of the deck's plan B. You could say that. Just really looking to get as much value off of our ops and Thought Scours, Lightning Bolts, get those elemental tokens. Once we get down Young Pyromancer and establish those elemental tokens, we're also running 3 copies of Jace the Mind Sculptor. So we can use those tokens to help protect Jace, either start fake sealing our opponent or going for that brainstorm ability to find some sort of answer for us. And outside of that, we are running your core Grixis spells. We're running 2 copies of Kolaghan's Command, Electrolyze, and then 2 copies of Terminate. Now, onto the sideboard, it's going to be completely dependent on your meta, but this is pretty much just what I've been running in a lot of my Grixis shells. You want to run some sort of Anger of the Gods. It does kind of hit your Young Pyromancer, but you definitely want to have it in those, those low-to-the-ground creature-style matchups. And then same thing with the Is It Staticaster. It's going to help us make sure those low-to-the-ground decks keep those creatures off the battlefield. Now, as far as Collective Brutality, we have it in the sideboard instead of the main board. Simply because we don't have, we want this deck to be as low to the ground as possible. We want to be able to Thought Scour and Lightning Bolt in the same turn. So with Collective Brutality, we do have it in the sideboard, but it's going to work great post-sideboard because we're going to allow us to discard some of our cards. Let's say that we're looking at a really tight inverter kind of pathway that we can take. We can use the Collective Brutality to kind of chunk some of these cards into the graveyard that we can't cast on time, and that's going to allow us to kind of sculpt our graveyard with Inverter of Truth. Also running 2 copies of Spell Snare and then double Ceremonies for Jackson for those Tron and Eldrazi matches. But that's the deck tech in a nutshell. I do have 3 gameplay videos for you right now, so be sure and check them out. And if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.